Hey, what's up everybody? It is Kellen here from Start Your Systems, and welcome back to MX Simulator, where today we're going to be recapping the final round of the 2020 Lucas Oil Pro Motocross Championship at Fox Raceway, round 9 of the championship, and 2020 is behind us for the American contingent, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. There is no more racing left for the AMA boys in 2020. There is no Monster Cup, there is no Red Bull Straight Rhythm, there is no Motocross of Nations, there is nothing. So this is going to be the last one that we're going to be talking about for a long time. I'll still do some of those GP reviews as per usual. But if you're new to this, maybe you've never seen this type of video before, essentially I'm just going to be playing the 2020 version of the MX Simulator track in-game, even though it's the 2019 Fox Raceway track. This is the track that we raced in MX Simulator a couple months ago now. And kind of reviewing everything that happened at Fox Raceway, which I still call Paula all the time, but I guess I have to start calling it Fox Raceway from a professional standpoint on some level. But let's break down everything that happened. All the champions have been crowned, and yeah, let's dive into it. So I want to start off by talking about our two champions. So before I even get into the races or anything like that, let's just break down the two championships that were officially decided over the weekend. First off, Zach Osborne, 31 years young, is the 2020 Lucas Oil Pro Motocross 450 class champion. And what a career, I guess, to get to this point. Just for those of you that don't know his story, he turned pro in 2006. He was a factory KTM rider back then, and was pretty much tipped as the next, kind of prodigy, I guess, that KTM was going to use to take to the top of the sport again and everything back then. And it absolutely did not work out, and he eventually went to Yamaha of Troy in 2008, but that only lasted for a few rounds before he was off that team. And suddenly he was in Europe racing the MX2 World Championship. And from 2008 to 2012, he was racing in MX2. He rode primarily for Steve Dixon's, it went by several names, the Bike at Cosworth Yamaha team, the Monster Energy Dixon Yamaha racing team. Like, it was all over the place, but he basically just rode for Steve Dixon's Yamaha team for 5 years, and came back to the USA on a one-off chance, basically, where he said he was already coming back to the USA because he and his now wife Brittany, I believe, they were going to get married, and so they were visiting family and stuff like that. And he asked Dixon if he could use one of the Yamahas and go race some Supercross races, and he now says that he utilized those rounds as a testing point as to whether he would go, because he's going to age out of the MX2 class that year, and it was he going to try to figure out if he could find an MX1 contract somewhere and move up, or was he going to come back to the USA, and that would be where his career path and trajectory would go from there. Obviously, we now know how that all panned out. He podiumed a couple rounds in Supercross that year. I think he raced 5 rounds of Supercross, podiumed a couple, and won over the hearts of many people in the USA again, including Geico Honda, who signed him for a couple-year deal there. Went over to Geico Honda from 2013 to 2015, I believe it was, that he last rode there. I think that's right. Maybe 15 was when he went to Husky. Then he went over to the Rockstar Energy Husqvarna team, built up his program there, started training with Alden Baker, won the 2017 250 East Championship, 2017 250 Outdoor Championship, 2018 250 East Championship, and maybe was on his way to the 2018 250 Outdoor Championship before he got hurt. Then rookie year last year on a 450 at basically 30 years old. He was 29 when he made his debut on a 450, but obviously turned 30 before the year was up, and now he's turned 31 before the year is up here, and he is a premier class champion in one of the most unlikely stories to the top of the sport, if you will, ever. Oldest champion in the 450 class, and like I said, as you just heard from that story, it is kind of crazy the road he took here. Now, a couple things I wanted to talk about with this championship this year. 9 rounds out of 12, obviously, that would have happened, so it was only a 75% of the season. I do not want to hear at all the asterisk comment. It is so annoying that has to be brought up every single time, because I mean, look, if we're gonna dive into the history books and all this stuff like that, there was plenty of championships long ago that definitely didn't even go 12 rounds. They probably went only 6 rounds, and there was still crowning champions back then, and they still count the same way it does nowadays to win an outdoor championship. So to me, I don't care if it was 9 rounds. I don't really care if it was even 6 rounds. These guys knew how many rounds it was going to take to win the championship coming into it, and if they weren't prepared and ready to go to win the championship, and tough luck. They didn't have it this year. And Zach Osborne, in my opinion, proved on many occasions he was the best rider in this outdoor championship. It obviously took Cianciarulo a little while to get going, but once he did, he probably was a bit better than Osborne in the second half. But Osborne, look, I saw this comment on social media, and it just was grinding my gears because this guy had said that it's the age-old thing. He said, it just feels weird to me when the fastest guy doesn't win the championship. And I was looking at that comment, and I took a couple more seconds to kind of think about it, and I'm like, okay, that's fine if you're mad that Eli Tomac won 10 Supercross races, Brian Dungey won 3, and Dungey won the championship, because, yeah, maybe Tomac was a better rider in 2017, but Dungey was a more consistent rider. This year, Osborne won 6 of the 18 motos on the table, which is more than anybody else. He won 4 of the 9 overalls on the table, which again, more than anybody else. And when he was back against the wall, if you will, Cianciarulo was starting to chunk huge points away, and the flat front tire at Millville put him, back on the back foot, if you will, and having to really kind of figure it out and respond to the pressure. He just whooped up on everybody and went 1-1 at WW Ranch. So to me, I think Osborne proved this year that he was the best outdoor rider in the USA. He could raise his level when he needed to. He rode conservatively when he needed to. He put all of it together, really. And outside of a couple weirdo moments, it was a fairly flawless 9 rounds on his part. The flat front tire, there's only so much you can do. He had a weird crash at Ironman when he ran into a lapped rider, but I mean, I don't know if you can 100% say that's Zacho's deal. And then he was pretty outstanding otherwise, in my opinion. I thought he rose to the occasion very well, and even under the heaviest of pressure here at this last round, there was no signs of cracking or anything along those lines. He was very reserved. At one point in the first moto, he was kind of battling at the front, looking like he even had a chance to go win the moto and just put it to bed there. But he elected to play it safe and back it down a little bit, not overexert himself and all that, and just perfectly smart, calculated day at the races for him that ultimately ends up in a championship. So to me, like I said, I just don't agree at all with the logic of the fastest guy didn't win, or that there's an asterisk tied to this championship. Because, I mean, look, 9 rounds into the championship, regularly speaking, we got a pretty clear picture of who's going to win the championship. The past 3 years that Eli's won his titles, 9 rounds in, he was pretty much the guy. When Roxon won his title in 2016, he was definitely the guy 9 rounds in. I mean, I think he wrapped up the title, a round and a half early, essentially. So to me, I don't think that this changes the results, that it was a 9-round championship. This doesn't affect how it all played out or anything. And I guess you could make the case that it took Tomac so long to get going that he didn't have this late race or late championship push that he normally could have had. But again, these guys all know or knew how many rounds it was going to be months ago, and could have planned for it and figured it all out and gotten the ball rolling right away. And just because Eli Tomac couldn't make it happen right away, or Adam Cianciarulo ran into his rookie problems, or Cooper Webb got hurt, or Jason Anderson got hurt, or Ken Roxon elected not to race outdoor, it just, to me, I don't, these guys all knew what it was going to take to win the championship, and Zach Osborne did it. Other people didn't, but Zach Osborne did. So to me, I think he's a plenty deserving champion, and I'm really kind of proud of him, I guess, stoked for him in a level as well, but just proud that, he even said on the podium after the championship was clinched and everything like that, how he and his wife, when he had a horrendous injury back in March in Supercross, he had fractured his back, collapsed lungs, all this kind of stuff, that he and his wife had a serious conversation about retiring at that point. And, he came back at Salt Lake City and pretty much after the first practice was over, just realized how big of a mistake that would have been. But, I mean, how much more would that have changed our sport, if you will, that Osborne has a bad injury and just elects to call it a career at 30. I don't think anybody would have faulted him. Like, he had a crazy, tumultuous career. And, it's really cool to see him win this championship. That, to me, this is one of those really good feel-good stories about a championship win that they don't come around all that often. Sometimes, like, you see guys get on rolls and it's just like another one. But how long Osborne has been at this game and how hard he's had to try to get to the top of the sport, just kind of incredible. That being said, I still think that, like, you can't hang your head low if you're Adam Cianciarulo or if you're Eli Tomac or Marvin Musquin. Like, yeah, Tomac probably lost the most this year in terms of, had it all to play for. He had the 4-peat on the line. He coming off the Supercross title, probably should have, had the flow going right from round one, but he didn't. But to me, it's like, yeah, he just had a kid. He won the Supercross title. Like, he's a 3-time outdoor champion. He's one of the winningest motocross riders in American history. I don't think that you can leave this championship and be like, oh, we got to feel bad for Eli Tomac. Like, he still had a pretty good year, still going to finish third in the championship and still rolls into 2021 with kind of a lot of momentum that he didn't have in previous years, having the Supercross title in his back pocket. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if next outdoor season he's right back to the same Eli Tomac that we saw before. And then on the flip side, like Marvin Musquin coming off of almost a whole year off the bike to more or less challenge for this championship. I know it didn't really play out that way in the end, and he definitely had some weird up and down motos towards the end of the season. But halfway through the season, there was plenty of case that you could have made that Marvin Musquin might walk out of there with a championship after not having raced for 350 some odd days and coming off of knee reconstructive surgery, and him debating retirement as well with the Brian Moreau thing and stuff like that. So, like, it's good to see that, Marvin made the whole season healthy, and he's going to come into 2021 ready to go as well. And then Cianciarulo, I personally feel that this was the real, like, kind of coming out of Cianciarulo, that I'm glad it happened the way it did, if you will, because it would have really sucked if Cianciarulo had a similar season to that he had in Supercross, which was, like, showed a lot of speed and potential, but just kept crashing all the time and just couldn't stay off the ground. And to a degree, he did crash a fair amount outdoors, but it was never really like a big crash. Like, there was a couple close calls, but there was never like the huge get off for Cianciarulo. And to me, I think that sets us up so well moving forward, because Ferrandis is going to move up. Sexton, he just won his first overall of his career. You have these guys coming up from the 250 class that are supposed to be the next generation, if you will, and Ferrandis is going to be the short-lived version of that because he's already 26. Well, all these guys are 20, 21. Sexton is 21, and Cianciarulo is 23, I believe. But then you have Cooper Webb, who is, I think, Cianciarulo's age as well, and he's a Supercross champion already. And, once the Tomac and the Roxon and all these guys are gone, that's going to be the next generation, and I'm so happy to see that it's, for Cianciarulo, going to probably work out in a better favor than him crashing and getting hurt too often, which was a lot of his 250 career, and he finally figured it out at the end. But I just didn't want it to turn into the case where his 450 career was 4 or 5 years of crashes and injuries before he finally figured it out, and by that point the generation he was with has already moved on or whatever. So I'm really happy for Cianciarulo that he had the year that he did. It's just going to set us up so well for a tremendous Supercross season. So 450 class championship, Osborne, really cool to see. 250 class championship, the final 250 race of his career, Dylan Ferrandis able to clinch the championship. Again, a very conservative day for the most part. The first moto, you could tell he was going for it. He knew that the championship would be won if he could pass Jet Lawrence, with Jeremy Martin finishing 4th. So he definitely was going for it in the second half of the first moto. But I felt like in the first half he was even kind of biding his time a little bit and not really like pushing the envelope and just like letting things come to him. And then the second moto, he had an early crash and just kind of took his time to make the passes that he needed to make. You know, he didn't need to make a lot of passes. He's still out of fairly comfortable points lead after the first moto, but cruised it home and leaves the 250 class as a 2-time Supercross champion and a 250 class outdoor champion. And I talked about in the video last week the sort of French curse that's been happening. I actually didn't realize this until we really started breaking it down this week, but a French rider had never won the 125 250 class championship ever. And it's kind of crazy to think about when you see that, you know, Roncada and Villemin and Porcel and then Muscan coming through, and none of those guys could ever get it done. And Ferrandis is the first French rider ever to clinch it, and apparently he's just the third foreign rider, including Grant Langston and Dean Wilson, to ever clinch that championship as well. So, yeah, many congratulations to him. Again, to the comments of the asterisks and the fastest rider comments and all that stuff like that. To me, I think Ferrandis was the best rider in this 250 class this year. And I think that, you know, Jeremy Martin was really good at capitalizing at the mistakes that Ferrandis had, where he would get bad starts and not be able to come through the field, or he would crash or whatever, and Martin would start up front so often and all that stuff. But Ferrandis, in the last 4 rounds of the year, the last 8 motos or so, kind of proved, I think, why he really was the best rider in the class. And it was just the starts that were killing him so much. You know, he started clicking off moto wins with relative ease, started winning overalls with relative ease again, and really putting the pressure back onto Martin to kind of respond. And Martin really just kind of came up with snake eyes in terms of response. So yeah, again, I think that for Ferrandis' sake, he's a very deserving champion, and I hope that there's not too much of the people shouting from the rooftops about he's French and needs to go back to France, because I'm happy he's here. I'm really happy that there's somebody that was an elite rider in Europe that elected to come and showcase his talents and race in the USA and make things that much more interesting from a fan's perspective. And now moves up to the 450 class as an elder statesman, similar to what we've seen with Osborne. He's going to be 27 by his 450 debut, I believe. And that's not young, but I think that Ferrandis, kind of like I feel like with Osborne, has a good 5 or so years of 450 racing in him before he would contemplate retiring. And Osborne more or less hinted at the fact that 2022 would be the earliest he would consider retiring at this point. Now that he's kind of got, you know, everything back underneath of him a little bit, and that would be at the end of his 4th full season of 450 competition. And I think that Osborne probably will go longer, if I'm being honest, unless he has a big injury. Osborne seems like the guy that quite enjoys being at the races. His wife and his family and all that stuff, they quite enjoy being at the races. And then Ferrandis was kind of brutally honest in the post-race press conference. He said he was a few beverages deep at this point as well, but he was pretty much just like, when you're French and you live in the US, there's not much you can do besides work. Because I guess from his perspective, it's like he doesn't have like this lavish social life because he doesn't speak like good enough English to, I guess. I don't really know what like he was going at with this comment, but he basically just said like all he does is work and then sleep and then work and then sleep, and that's like how he kind of lives his life right now. And there is obviously the possibility that that burns him out, but to me, it really more or less seems like he's the type of guy that enjoys that lifestyle, where it's just like, yeah, I like riding my dirt bike. I want to win races and championships, so I will work as hard as I can to do that. Yeah, looking forward to Ferrandis moving up next year. Let's talk about the actual race, though, because the championships and all that stuff, like, we kind of knew what was going to happen coming in. We knew these guys are going to win the titles probably because they're so far out in front. But I am a little bit shocked, not going to lie, at the way that the first 450 moto transpired. Now, Eli Tomac was still mathematically alive at the time in that first 450 moto, but it was super rare. I think it was, what, 46, 47 points down, like needed Osborne to double DNF and Tomac go 1-1 and gain a huge chunk of points on Muscan and Cianciarulo to win the championship. So, like, astronomical chances at winning the title. And Adam Cianciarulo was 24 points back. I get it. 24 points is a lot to overhaul. But it's crazy to me that team tactics just, it's I don't get it. Every other form of motorsport, team tactics is beat down like a dead horse. Like, so many team tactics happening in every other form of motorsport, including motorsport races that are significantly less popular or important, I guess, if you want to call it that, than motocross. You know, like American street bike racing has team tactics. Hydroplane racing has team tactics. Like, all these sports that like not a lot of people watch and or probably care that much about, they still use team tactics. But motocross, nah, not at all. And I listened to the review pod with Steve Mathis, Jason Wygant, and Jason Thomas, and I was asking my boss Weege this after the race on Saturday night, and I said, why? Like, give me a definitive reason why in this sport team tactics, for whatever reason, just don't exist. And I think inadvertently he gave me an answer in the review pod, and the reality is that in this sport, unlike other sports, which is interesting, the riders kind of control it. The riders, you know, like the teams are there for just like the riders. The teams are not there for the team's sake. Other forms of motorsports, there's like constructors championships and stuff like that. But like at the end of the day in NASCAR, JGR will break their back to win a NASCAR championship for the team. For whatever reason, it just doesn't seem like that transfers over in motocross. I don't know if it's just the manufacturers not wanting to get involved in that, but to me that doesn't make much sense either, because like MotoGP, for example, KTM has really stepped up their program, and then there's Yamaha and Honda and Suzuki and all that stuff is involved in MotoGP, and there's absolutely team tactics in MotoGP. You can't say there isn't, because there's been plenty of cases of it over the years. But for whatever reason, I just don't get how it skips over motocross. There are circumstances that it exists. Marvin Musquin, East Rutherford, Bob Hanna with Brock Glover in 1977. You know, there's instances, but it's so rare that it just kind of blows my mind how rare it is. I was pretty shocked Kawasaki let Eli Tomac win that first moto. I get it, 24 points is a lot, and Eli Tomac was still mathematically alive, but as soon as the white flag waved and Zach Osborne crossed the finish line in the first moto with the white flag waving, Eli Tomac was mathematically eliminated. They'd already lapped too many people, so Osborne was guaranteed to finish in a points bank position high enough that Eli Tomac was eliminated, and Kawasaki would know that. But I don't know. I guess that to me, like, this is the crux of it, right? You guys watching this video are going to say team tactics are stupid, and they are. I agree. I think that it's stupid that we have races in many forms of motorsports being decided from a business standpoint more than anything. But it's a reality of the fact, because every other form of motorsport does it, that it is a business decision at all times to try to win a championship at all costs for these teams. But and how at all costs is it? Well, maybe team tactics weren't in play with Monster Energy Star Racing Yamaha in Supercross, but they were so willing to try to do anything they could to win the title that they protested Chase Sexton for fuel after the championship was over. Not during the season, nothing like that. After the championship was over, in order to hopefully get him disqualified from the finale and hand over the championship to Shane McElrath, they said, hey, is Chase Sexton's fuel legal? Let's go ahead and protest it. That's how at all costs teams are willing to go to try to win these championships. But for who knows why, I guess just because the riders control it so much more than in other motorsports, they are unwilling to go the extra mile to try to win a championship. Because like, let's look at it from this perspective, right? In the second moto, Zach Osborne needed to finish 14th to clinch the championship. If Eli Tomac lets Adam Cianciarulo win the first moto, Osborne needs 11th to clinch the championship. Still pretty far-fetched, but significantly more doable, or like not significantly so, but at least noticeably more doable. Like Osborne finishing 11th, not outlandish. He finished 7th in the second moto. He was obviously nursing it and just kind of like trying to coast it home, but you know, we saw the flat front tire thing happen, a weird mechanical, a fall, having to charge through the field. You know, imagine that second moto, and it becomes a moot point because Brock Tickle fell in the first lap and still got 9th or whatever it was. But imagine in the second moto, Osborne falls in the first corner. Somehow, some way, you know, gets, you know, loses enough time that the best he can do is finish 12th. That Eli Tomac not letting Cianciarulo go by moment would haunt Kawasaki for a long time, in my opinion, because they are in the business of winning championships. Winning championships, in their opinion, sells motorcycles. So in order to sell motorcycles at all costs, they need to win championships. Again, I get it. Team tactics, it probably doesn't exist as much in motocross for whatever reason. And it probably shouldn't either. Like I said, I am not a fan of team tactics from the racing standpoint, and I enjoy watching good, hard, clean, all the way through fighting and racing and battling and stuff like that. But I'm not blind to the business of every form of motorsport out there, including motocross. And to me, I was kind of surprised to see Eli Tomac get the A-OK to just straight up pass Adam Cianciarulo for the win. And it was weird too, because I know they upped the pace a little bit, but it was kind of odd how in the first moto Tomac caught Cianciarulo very fast, and then like it seemed to me like he got to him and was like almost a little bit like, should I pass him or not? Which doesn't make any sense to me, because Eli Tomac is so against the idea of team tactics that he denies that he would ever do it, and never gave Joey Savacci anything for Savacci letting him win $1 million. But interestingly enough, Bruce Sternstrom at Cowie, who is I believe is the team manager, he's like one of the head guys over there. Weege went over and talked to Sternstrom before and got the lowdown about team tactics, and Sternstrom said, oh yeah, we would do it if we needed to. If we needed to, we would move our riders around to win a championship. Now, I think, you know, the reality of that is that he would move them around if on the last lap of the last moto of at the very end of the year, Eli Tomac is leading Cianciarulo as second. If Cianciarulo can win the moto, it wins him the championship. I think then they moved Tomac out of the way in that situation. But there you go. Kawasaki said they would do it. All the years of after the Muscan thing happened of Tomac fans just ripping into that situation, saying Cowie would never, Tomac and that team would never. There it is. There's your proof in the pudding. They would do it too. So again, if they say that in that situation they would do it and then they don't do it, I guess I don't get it. But I don't know. That's beside the point. I'm just going to sit here and rant about that all day long if someone doesn't shut me up. So I'm going to shut myself up and move on to the next topic, which is Chase Sexton. Chase Sexton winning his first 450 overall of his career. He won his first 450 moto of his career in the second moto. Him and Christian Craig riding so smooth that it barely looked like they were moving at all, but they were flying around the racetrack and putting so much pressure on Adam Cianciarulo in the second moto that I don't know. I don't think that was like a cracked moment. That just looked like a weird, it's kind of similar to what happened at Thunder Valley last week on this uphill step up. Cianciarulo got kicked forward, landed nose heavy, almost saved it, but eventually went down. And Sexton was able to go by, take the lead, take the win. Christian Craig follows him home in second. And that was really cool to see. The gear Sexton wore was awesome. Chicago Bulls themed gear because he's number 23. He is from Illinois, fairly close to Chicago. And Michael Jordan, an icon in Chicago for his 6 NBA championships, and also wore number 23. So Alpine Stars came out with a really cool one-off design kit there for Sexton, and goes out and wears Michael Jordan's gear, for lack of a better word, and wins. So maybe he should wear that more often. But yeah, that was really cool to see Sexton win it. Like I said with Cianciarulo, it's good to see him get kind of his feet wet in that sense of a taste of glory, a taste of what it feels like to win these races, because that's only going to help him immensely once Supercross comes around next year and everybody's on the gate again, to know that, yeah, I can beat these guys. Like Eli Tomac is the defending Supercross champion. My name's Chase Sexton and I can beat Eli Tomac, you know? Like, mentally, that's a huge, huge step. And good to see that. Good to see Craig end the season strong. and all that. And kind of leads me to my next topic about Geico Honda, which now sounds like they are going to be gone. Geico Honda losing their title sponsorship of Geico. So technically speaking, it's the Factory Connection Honda team. Sounds like they're done. They had a lot of great years, a lot of championships. It all started in 1998 with Mike LaRocco, and made it all the way to 2020 with quite the effort, quite the 250 program that they put together over the years, and obviously setting some of their riders to ride 450s over the years as well. Kevin Windham rode a 450 on that team forever, and it is super, super sad to see them go, honestly. Like, it kills me that it had to transpire the way that it did, because that team really probably had all of the resources and opportunities to make at least something happen next year. Maybe it's not the level of team that they have now. They'd have to cut staff and cut back a little bit, but Geico pulling out from their title sponsorship roles so late into the season really put them on this kind of the back foot, and they try to throw stuff together, and it just sounds like it didn't work out. So that leads everybody on that team rideless, essentially. What we hear is the Lawrence brothers, who in my opinion are under Honda contract. At least that's how I've been phrased it over the years, but people I have talked to recently said they don't believe that's the case. Anyway, they're going to stay under the Honda tent and move to the Honda HRC outfit on 250s. So Honda HRC will have Sexton and Roczen on 450s and the Lawrence brothers on 250s next year, or so we believe. Jeremy Martin is moving to a different manufacturer. How do we know that? Because he said it on the podium. He said, I am moving to a different manufacturer next year, and I can't wait to get on the bike. And then Martin, who, like Ferrandis, was already a few beverages deep once the press conference happened, was asked by Darkside what team he's going to be going to next year, and conveniently disconnected at the exact same time from the press conference and never came back. I don't think that was on purpose. I think that there was probably some signal issue or something like that, but it's just funny how Darkside was like, hey, can you kind of clue us into what team that's going to be? And then silence. So there's two kind of schools of thought about where Martin ends up next year. He's been linked to Gas for the past month and a half, probably, since the Geico thing blew up. And the Gas team moving to Troy Lee Designs. Martin would come into that team and probably pair alongside Pierce Brown underneath Justin Barsha, who will be on the 450 team. And it sounded like it would be a 2-year deal, 250 in 21, 450 in 2022. To me, that sounds like the ideal route if I'm Jeremy Martin and want a future in the 450 class. But now suddenly, the rumors went hot and heavy this past week with Pro Circuit apparently going to open the pocketbook and sign Jeremy Martin. So, yeah, J-Mart could be green or he could be red again, but on a red KTM next year. Either way, he is not going to be back on a Honda because he very clearly said it on the podium, and we'll see where it is that he ends up. So the question marks then lie with what happens to Joe Shimoda and Carson Mumford, and eventually like Hunter Yoder and those guys. They're free agents as well, and there's a lot of questions about where they're going to land. There is no definitive answer. Carson Mumford earlier this week basically said, we've got some things hopefully lined up, but there is nothing solid whatsoever. And Joe Shimoda, to me, is a talent somebody needs to pick up, because third in his rookie 250 Supercross season, I know he got lucky with some injuries in that class, but then finishes his final 250 moto outdoors in his first full rookie campaign, I guess I should say, because he raced some outdoors last year, but his first full rookie season, gets a podium in the final moto of the year. I think that there's more to Shimoda than meets the eye. Like, I feel like a lot of people were just kind of like, yeah, he's just like a, the fourth best Geico Honda rider this year, which is fair. He probably was, but the dude doesn't get starts ever, and he finally did, and he kind of proved what he's worth. So I feel like Shimoda's more of a hot commodity than people are kind of realizing, in my opinion at least. I would, if he doesn't end up somewhere good, I would be kind of shocked, because I think the Shimoda stock is high right now. Anyway, there's a lot to the silly season rumors. What I wanted to talk about with Geico Honda, though, is that as they leave the sport, it was really cool to see how it all unfolded. The final moto of the year, J-Mart wins. Jet Lawrence finishes second, goes 1-2 on the day to win his first career overall. 17 years young, winning a 250 motocross overall in the U.S. And then Joe Shimoda, as mentioned, finishes third in the race. And I think he finished fifth overall or something like that. But how about the final 250 race of their existence, perhaps? Geico Honda podium sweep. And then in the 450 class, two of their riders that were on their team earlier this year and are to some degree still contractually obligated to that team, Chase Sexton and Christian Craig, also go 1-2. I mean, gosh, like, you can't even write that script any better. I kind of can't believe that it worked out that way. Yeah, that's crazy. But that's the way she goes, and that's the way the Geico Honda's 10-year career, etc., will end. And I think I'm going to make another video about the whole Geico Honda thing, because a lot of people have been asking questions about how the Geico deal fell apart, and did Dungey know it was coming? Did Christian Craig know it was coming? Because Christian Craig already locked in a deal at Star Racing Yamaha next year, and he did that like 3 months ago, which was like kind of weird because he's married to the team owner, Geico Honda, Jeff Myshak's daughter, who is Paige Myshak, but now is Paige Craig. And it's like, how is he going to abandon that team and go to Star Racing Yamaha, who is the rivals? Anyway, there's a whole lot of discussion about who knew or what happened and stuff like that. I don't think there's a whole lot to it, in my opinion, but I do want to maybe make a separate video and kind of break it down. It may even be the silly season video that I do after this at some point. But yeah, sad to see Geico Honda go. Like I said, they have touched a lot of riders' careers and made a huge difference in the sport over the years with bump starting careers, giving guys places to work, everything. And even this year, almost walked out of here with a championship in their final year, but at least they walked out of here with an overall win and a podium sweep in the final moto of their existence, which is just, as mentioned, absolutely insane. So yeah, that's kind of the main talking points from the Fox Raceway National. I'm sure I probably forgot about something. So many injuries that happened the day of. Justin Barcia pulls out of the race. Blake Baggett doesn't race. Joey Savacci said his knee bothered him still, so he did not race. Freddie Noren broke his kneecap, didn't race. Alex Martin broke his tibia, didn't race. That all happened in practice. Just so many things are stacking up there really quickly. Hunter Lawrence re-dislocated his shoulder in practice, missed the rest of the day. And by the way that Jet Lawrence reacted on the podium, it didn't sound like it was the best thing ever for Hunter Lawrence, as he may need to go under the knife to get that shoulder fixed, which is tough for him because that may cost him Supercross again, which would be the third year that he's here and doesn't get to fully go after Supercross. But yeah, there's a lot to talk about with Supercross and what's going to be on the horizon, but at least for right now, the championships are done. Osborne, Ferrandis, no asterisks, win the Lucas Oil Pro Motocross Championships, head into potentially the first true off-season in decades, where there is no off-season racing whatsoever to speak of. Probably going to be no Australian Supercross, no Paris Supercross, no Motocross of Nations, no Monster Energy Cup, no Red Bull Straight Rhythm. Whole lot of nothing, and these guys just going to have to put their head down and get prepped for Supercross, which we hope comes in January. So that is your lot and everything from the Fox Raceway National, the finale of the 2020 Lucas Oil Pro Motocross Championship. Crazy stuff, crazy action, and a whole lot to talk about. Would love to continue the conversation with you guys in the comment section below. Please head down there and let's open up the discussion now. And please head over to racerxonline.com/subscribe and subscribe to the magazine. Helps me keep a job as we figure out what's going to happen for Supercross next year and try to keep you guys informed as us in the media. Looking forward to 2021 already. So please head over there. Helps us out a ton. And as always, appreciate you guys stopping by all these rounds. We covered the races this year and watching just another video here on Start Your Systems. Plenty more to come as we head into the off season, and yeah, enjoy all these lovely times. So congrats to Osborne, congrats to Ferrandis, and I guess congrats to Lawrence and Sexton as well. First time winners, first time champions. Good to see. And yeah, that's going to do it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one. So long for now.